Have you heard that beekeepers feed their bees? Why would we feed our bees? What do we feed our bees? I mean, the bees gather the nectar, the pollen, they should have their own stuff, right? Well, today we're going to tell you when we feed our bees, why we feed our bees, and what we feed our bees. We've been keeping bees for over 9 years. We have 5 different apiaries and about 50 hives on average per year that we manage. We love to teach beekeeping classes, and we especially love to help people in the East Texas area figure out how to be the best beekeepers they can be. So we're out in the bee yard. It's a sunny day. It's the middle of January, and we are going to feed the bees. And Robert's going to tell us why beekeepers feed the bees.
Okay, so the biggest thing, and most often beekeepers feed the bees, is because they take too much honey in the summer and fall, not leaving enough resources for the bees to get through winter. And here in East Texas, it's very common this time in January. So like today was 20 degrees, 22 degrees this morning. Now it's almost 60 degrees. So we've had a temperature change of about 38 degrees from this morning to now. And while the bees were not active, they're starting to get active today. In East Texas, in January, we already have pollen. We have tree pollen, primarily elm. And so that's giving the signals to the bees as they start bringing in that pollen that they need to increase their brood. So a lot of times we want to do inspections and just make sure that they have resources, because we will get cold snaps in February and even into March. Our latest freeze can be, typically around March 15th. And they need resources to be able to keep the temperature warm, to keep the brood alive. And so we want to make sure, we planned here in Texas for about 40 pounds of honey to get through the winter, but we want to check when we have warm days like this, just to make sure that they haven't gone through all their resources. And if they have, then we need to do something about it. And so today I'm going to give these hives just a little bit of what we use is sugar water. You can use corn syrup, you can use honey, but we typically provide them a liquid sugar. We don't have as much problems as they do up north with freezing of the sugar water. So the bees are still able to process it here in Texas.
Awesome. All right, so like you said, we chose today to go into the bees because it's a warmer day and it's been chilly. Also, for us, we didn't make very much honey last year. We didn't take very much honey last year, and so we're just making sure that the colonies have enough to continue growing throughout these next few months.
Now I use in-hive feeders, so I don't have to open the hive all up. I just have to move the top over a little bit just to expose the feeder itself. And then what I will do is I will use a measuring cup to fill up the feeder. And it doesn't matter if you spill, you don't want to spill a lot, but if you spill a little bit inside the hive, the bees will suck all that up and they'll put it into the comb wherever they need it.
That's another good point. So even if the feeder is full, let's say that tonight it gets down to the 20s. And let's say that it was the end of the day and we know they're not going to have time to get that sugar water moved. That sugar water is not a resource that they can utilize while it's in the feeder. They actually have to move it over onto a frame and into cells, and that's where they would actually start to consume it and use it to feed.
So other times that you would feed is, I guess it's your responsibility as a beekeeper to manage their resources and to monitor their resources. So if they're short on pollen, you would feed them maybe a pollen substitute if there wasn't any pollen available. And then the same with sugar water or syrup. If they were running out of honey or didn't have enough honey or nectar in your mind, then you would go ahead and feed them. And that just keeps them from shutting down brood production as opposed to if they do run out, they would stop producing brood, and so you don't want that to happen, especially in springtime when you want them to grow to be ready for the flower and the nectar flow in the springtime. So times that you would do it is anytime you go out there and you notice that they've run out of either nectar or honey. What would cause that? Well, one we've already talked about is the beekeeper taking it. Another would be that there's just poor weather, so it rains a lot. You're in a very rainy time of the year, so they don't have the ability to go out and forage for nectar. That may cause you to want to go ahead and just feed them just to get them through the rainy time, so once the rain stops and the flowers are out there, that they can continue just as if there was no interruption. Here in Texas, we have what's called the summer dearth, so you want to monitor your hive, especially new hives, because new hives are typically using a lot of resources to produce wax. And so you may either want to feed them to give them excess resources so they can produce that wax, or if they're producing wax and just don't have enough nectar, then you want to feed them as well. A lot of these I'm not filling up, I'm just putting in some so they'll have some to work. Some of these hives are not what I'd call huge, so they don't need a lot, but it'll give them something to do. Give them some resources. If you have a really small hive and you fill this up, sometimes it can start to ferment before they'll get through it all.
Awesome. So we hope this helps. Just a quick little feeding video to show you how we feed. And again, we feed just a 1-to-1 sugar water. We, just mix it up in our little buckets, and then we head into the bee yard and feed the bees. We like the in-the-hive feeders. Maybe in the future we will talk about a community feeder and some of the pros and cons with that. So hope you have a great day and happy beekeeping.